Have you ever looked at the world and just felt like the chaos is way too big, way too complex to ever solve? Well, the philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurthy had this pretty radical idea. He said the solution isn't out there, it's in here. So today, we're going to dive into his core philosophy from the first and last freedom, a journey to understand ourselves and, through that, maybe even the world.
You know, Aldous Huxley in its foreword to the book just hits the nail on the head. He says we're basically living in two worlds at the same time. There's the real world of matter, and then there's the world of symbols, our ideas about it. And it's right there, in that little gap between what is and what we think, that all our problems really begin.
All right, so that brings us to our first big idea, and it's where Krishnamurti connects our own inner lives directly to what's happening on the world stage. It's a really simple but, wow, a profound premise that, if you really let it sink in, it changes everything. And here it is. This is Krishnamurti's central claim, the foundation for absolutely everything else he talks about. The world isn't some separate thing that's just happening to us. We are the world. All the chaos, all the conflict, but also all the beauty. It all starts inside each and every one of us. And this is where Krishnamurti really puts the responsibility right back on our shoulders. Society, he says, is just the sum total of our relationships. So if we're confused or greedy or fearful in how we deal with each other, well, we project that outward and bam, we create a chaotic world. All of a sudden, the global feels intensely personal, doesn't it?
But okay, if we're the source of the problem, why is it so incredibly hard to change? Well, this brings us to the really clever traps our own minds create, what Krishnamurti calls the illusion of escape.
In this slide, this gets right to the heart of that trap. Krishnamurti draws this really sharp line between truth and belief. Truth, he says, is something you have to realize for yourself, a direct experience. Belief, on the other hand, is just an idea we grab onto. And because my belief can be different from your belief, it automatically separates us, and it becomes a way to avoid looking at things as they actually are.
So what does this look like in real life? Well, we come up with all these sophisticated ways to avoid facing ourselves. We look for answers from leaders and gurus, we adopt these rigid political or religious systems, or we get lost in mountains of self-help books. We even make the mistake of thinking that just gathering more knowledge is the same as real understanding. But Krishnamurti says all of these are just fancy forms of avoidance, ways to feel safe without doing the real inner work.
And this is the crucial turning point. If all the external paths are just dead ends, just escapes, where do we look? Well, there's only one direction left, and that's inward. This is the journey of self-knowledge.
So how do we actually do this? The path isn't about trying to become something you're not, trying to be the perfectly patient person or the non-violent person. That's just chasing an ideal, which is just another escape. The real work, he says, is to start with what you are right now, whether that's greedy or angry or scared, and to just look at it without judging it or trying to justify it. That honest, choiceless awareness, that is the true beginning of freedom.
So that brings us to the core practice itself, observing what is. How does this simple, direct observation actually work when we're dealing with our most difficult emotions?
Okay, let's take fear. We usually think we're afraid of the unknown, right? Like death. But Krishnamurti makes this incredible point. You can't actually be afraid of something you don't know. What you're really afraid of is losing what you do know. Your relationships, your memories, your identity. Fear lives in the past, in all the things we cling to.
And what about loneliness? When we feel that deep inner emptiness, our first instinct is to fill it up with people, with activities, with noise, with anything. The escape becomes the #1 priority. But what if we didn't run? What if we could just stay with that feeling of emptiness and just observe it without being afraid of it?
And this applies to suffering too. The moment we ask, why am I suffering, or try to find some grand reason for our pain, we're already watering it down, we're explaining it away, we're escaping the raw fact of it. The real challenge is to just be with the suffering, to watch its movement without all the mind's commentary.
So what does this all boil down to? This is what Krishnamurti means by awareness. It's not about analyzing yourself or digging through your past like an archaeologist. It's much simpler. It's just watching your thoughts and feelings, from moment to moment, without judging them. And it's this state of pure, passive observation that, paradoxically, is what brings about radical change.
Which brings us to the absolute peak of this whole journey. What's the ultimate goal of all this self-observation? Well, it's freedom. But specifically, it's freedom from the known.
Think about it like this. Our minds are kind of like these huge warehouses filled with the known, all our past experiences, our memories, our conditioning. We approach every single new moment with this old instrument. The freedom Krishnamurti is talking about is the ability for the mind to become new, fresh, empty of the past. Because only a mind that's truly new can be creative and see reality as it actually is.
And this is the final, profound insight that just ties it all together. You can't think your way to truth. You can't stack up enough knowledge to get there. Truth, or reality, or whatever you want to call it, can only be perceived by a mind that is quiet and still. A mind that has understood its own conditioning and, in that very understanding, has become free from it.
And so we're going to end with a question that turns this whole explainer right back to you. Everything in life, every single sunrise, every conversation, every challenge, it's all completely new, it's happening for the very first time. But we almost always meet it with all the baggage of yesterday. So the real question Krishnamurti leaves us with is this: can you put down that baggage and meet the newness of life with a mind that is also completely new?